We finally got it. LeBron to Steph to LeBron. It was glorious.
Thing of beauty.
But I'm not talking about Anthony Davis saying this team is quote-unquote unbeatable after that scrimmage versus Canada. Also, the U.S. men's soccer coaching search news of the day. Jurgen Klopp says no. Let's go around the horn.
Of course he said no. It's a terrible job.
Klopp.
Jurgen.
Excuse me, Jurgen. 20,000 plus on hand in Vegas for a scrimmage. All the dignitaries in attendance. Some Mount Rushmore level dapping. And a final score, USA 86, Canada 72. Anthony Davis says if they run and play defense like they did, they are unbeatable. Quote, unbeatable, end quote. What you learned from an exhibition game like that. Around the horns, Bill Plaschke.
I learned that AD is correct. I agree with him completely. This is a game that USA usually would lose in the past. They've been together 4 days. Canada's a good team, a lot of NBA players. Usually, but they didn't, not only did they lose, they won handily. They played as well. This team is as good as any USA team since the Dream Team. They are unbeatable. They play defense, 11 steals, 9 blocks. They share the ball, 25 assists on 37 shots. They play as a team. Nobody took more than 10 shots. They looked committed. They looked intense. LeBron gave a pep talk after the game. They're happy to be there.
All right, so one scrimmage is all it took for you. This is the second time I've heard
not
it
a
this week.
scrimmage.
Dream Team, as good as the Dream Team, more talented.
Plaschke, are you saying it's over?
J.A. Adande, I turned
You're saying
to
it's
you.
over, Plaschke.
All this hype
is that
for
what
this
you're saying?
unbeatable
We've
team.
heard this from you before, Bill.
I'm saying it.
We've heard Bill
unbeatable
before, right?
Unbeatable.
It's over.
Okay.
It's not over, Bill. What I saw was a team that looked very uncomfortable in the half-court offense. They looked very beatable if you can force them into the half-court offense. They were a lot more free and loose and looked unbeatable when they were getting turnovers and when they were getting out in the transition game. That's when they look unbeatable. The good news for them is they have the type of defense that will force a lot of turnovers. And the other good news is that this is probably the worst version of them that we'll see, right? The beta version. So they have a chance to work on something, to work on their half-court offense, to get the rotations down, things like that. For now, if you can slow the game down, if you can force this team to try to beat you from the half court, you can get them. Some of these better teams might be able to
Kevin
get
Blackistone
but
to
they
you
will
now.
be better come Olympic time.
What you saw from Team USA in their first scrimmage.
I mean, I saw a talent-laden team, which is what you expected to see. I saw a team that went to their second unit and they brought in 5 NBA All-Stars. I saw a team that had perennial all-defensive players on it. I saw a team that didn't have Kevin Durant on it, and they still hammered these guys. I saw a team that spotted a 10-point lead to Canada, and they just came storming back. I mean, Bill's right. They've only practiced a few days. They don't have any chemistry right now, but what they do have is just an overwhelming amount of talent, and that talent will come through in the end.
Okay. So you've seen enough, it sounds like, after one scrimmage. And now Courtney Cronin, welcome around the horn on what you saw from USA over Canada.
This is a Canada team that is supposed to contend for a medal in Paris, yet they were held to 33% shooting from the floor last night. And that talent that KB speaks of makes me think of Drew Holiday. I know Steve Kerr said don't look into the lineups too much. It's early. They still have a couple of their games before they end up going to the Olympics. The reason that they went after Drew Holiday, Grant Hill said this earlier, rebounding and defense. They got out-rebounded at the FIBA World Games. They have the point of attack defense in one of the best wing defenders in the NBA. Keep Drew Holiday in that lineup. When you have SGA getting smothered by his defense, going 3 of 10 last night, Jamal Murray 2 of 8. I love this combination with him and Steph Curry in the backcourt. They were sloppy offensively, but they also haven't practiced together that much. To me, them coming together on the defensive end and showing us how stout of a team they can be in that area, knowing how different FIBA rules are, the international game. I think we've learned a lot in just one outing from Team USA.
KB, you want back in, please?
I was going to say, and I didn't mention Derek White, who, was dismissed the other day by getting named to this team because his name is not Jaylen Brown. But to Courtney's point, a great defensive player, and to Grant's point, a guy who is comfortable playing with so many superstars, which he does in Boston. And so he can play a couple of different roles for
Okay, Donde.
Yeah, Courtney, we saw why, in my view, Drew Holiday was the MVP of the finals for the first 3 or 4 games, at least, going through that. Also, last night, Tyrese Halliburton's defense, very impressive. He's not one of the bigger names on this team, but I think he could play an important role if he plays the way he did last night.
Bill Plaschke after the horn.
Anthony Davis had a double-double. You watch for him, he's going to be the MVP of this team. If he stays healthy, he'll be the MVP of this team.
God love you.
Don't laugh. Tony,
Bill
why are you
Plaschke.
laughing?
No,
Why
I
are you
mean,
laughing
well,
at
it just
that?
happens that he plays for the Lakers at the moment. I understand that. But just the definitive nature, I always wonder if you guys are going to tell me it's only one scrimmage before a tune-up, before
It's not a
friendly,
scrimmage. It was a
before the
game.
Olympics. We can't do, and you guys just come out firing. All right, it's over. They're the greatest team ever. We'll move on. More national team news, and not the news U.S. men's soccer fans, nor the U.S. Soccer Federation wanted to hear, no doubt. Jurgen Klopp, target number 1, rebuffing the U.S. soccer advance. David Ornstein, The Athletic, with the report. Klopp politely declining interest to coach this national team. Big news, whether you think it's a reality check, is a question I want to ask, too, around the horn on how U.S. soccer should feel with this search now that Klopp is reportedly declining interest. Courtney Cronin.
I say that U.S. soccer should go back and ask again. Throw another 0 on there. No, I'm kidding. We heard from Jurgen Klopp at the end of the season for Liverpool this year that he doesn't have enough energy right now. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the reason he feels like he needs to step away. This job requires a lot of energy because Team USA has regressed the U.S. men's national team has regressed since the World Cup. And some of that has to do with coaching. Some of that has to do with the way the players have not performed on the world stage. You're not really going to have the opportunities with some major tournaments to gear up to tell the strengths of your team for the 2026 World Cup. I'm with Bill. What he said at the top of the show, this is not an appealing job. It's great that U.S. soccer ended up swinging for the fences here, but now they have to be realistic in their search to replace someone who was universally beloved by these players and somebody who's not going to have necessarily the time to make the tweaks to this roster to get this team in contention.
So you don't believe this is an attractive job, and what I love about you, Courtney, in general, you don't take no for an answer. You'd go back to Klopp right now and say, can you please reconsider with another 0? Although there's some question whether they even have the money to throw around, which I don't buy. But Kevin Blackistone, I'll turn to you now here on the search without Klopp.
Well, this is kind of the flip side of the coin from the first segment of this show, where we talked about basketball and the international crowd, the fact that we have bequeathed basketball to the rest of the world and the rest of the world is catching up. We are now trying still to catch up to the international soccer game. And so to me, it's never about the coach, but it's about the development of players. If you look at the top 100 players in the world right now, you're going to find one American, and that's Christian Pulisic. Just a year ago, you wouldn't have found any because he wasn't on the list then. And so that's got to be something that international coaches or anybody who's getting tapped on the shoulder to come coach this men's team has to look at. And the men's team is actually better in terms of developing right now because there are more people who are playing overseas, getting seasoned over there, and then coming back over here. But those players like Matt Turner, he's a backup. He's a backup overseas. He's not a starter overseas. And some of the other stars have played for teams that have gotten relegated. So better to play over there, but this country still
We
does not
haven't
have
solved the riddle.
talent.
15 years
They
ago,
haven't.
when it was college players and MLS players, it was like, we need our players playing over there. Now, missed one World Cup 6 years ago out at the Copas. It's like, we need players who are college players and MLS players. Jay, talk to me about the pitch here to an international or a national coach. And why this is a job you would want. I heard it's not a good job. You tell me why it is.
Well, first, Tony, you have to go international. You can't come from within U.S. soccer because the American way ain't working when it comes to soccer. So I definitely think you have to go international there. I think the other problem is that this should have been done a couple years ago, right? Especially coming off the 6-month investigation into the claims by Reyna and his family. And so you kind of had to pause the whole operation at the top until you determined whether or not you were going to go forward with Berhalter. And then it turned out they did, and it was the wrong move. So 2 years, you could argue, were wasted, or at least that 6-month period was. You have to go outside, or why not look at the women's program, right? The women's national team has been a lot more successful than the men. So if you're going to think different, why not go for a female coach of this team?
Bill Plaschke, I turn to you. You already gave us the headline. You don't think this is an attractive job. I want to know why, with 2 years out from the World Cup, And a big country like this, going out to an international coach and saying, we'll give you whatever you want, come, join us, is not working.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. What they got to tell him is, okay, you'll be the home coach for the World Cup. You'll be the home team of the World Cup. We have 1 million kids who are playing soccer. We got out of the round of 16 in the last World Cup. There is a potential here for greatness. We have so many athletes. We have so many, and we're the greatest country in the world athletically. We can find 12 soccer players. Come here, host the World Cup. You'll be a hero forever. You'll be a legend forever. Come here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, finding soccer players would not be the job right here.
I can't even convince myself.
Right?
I can't convince myself.
They need a tactical coach at this moment for the next 2 years. It's not about the pay-for-play system and how to revise that. Understandably, should be something they're looking at. But for this coach in particular right now, Courtney Cronin, I'll bring you back in here. Klopp out, you would go back to him. Is there any other play?
Look, it's not an attractive job. I want to say one thing about Greg Berhalter. He took this program from one of the darkest days that it had. When that loss to Trinidad and Tobago in 2017 put them out of contention for the 2018 World Cup. You know, there's a lot to be said about the results not matching the overall body of work here, but there was a lot of good he had in righting the ship. However, I don't know if anybody coming in can take a look at this team's struggles in friendlies to Germany, Uzbekistan, the near loss to Jamaica, the way that they've played recently, and think this is an attractive job and that you're going to get the most out of these players when this is who you have.
After all that American excellence in the first segment about USA basketball, nobody can take this job? Oh, my goodness.
It's a bad job. I can't defend it.
Let's start buy or sell with Deion Sanders.
My wins are totally different than your wins. Your wins, you just judging football. I can't win 9 games and our GPA suffers. Our GPA can't be high, but we lose another 8 games. My wins are different. We have to win in every area. That's the way we're judged, and I'm cool with that.
Kevin Blackistone, the look on your face right now makes me want to go to you first here. The 4-win season, the 6-game losing streak to end, the roster overhaul. How do you hear Deion there?
Well, I'm confused by the talk about a GPA on a team in which you changed the roster by 61%, because that doesn't seem to jive with being concerned about the learning aspects of the students that you have as players. So I'm confused about that. And the other point is, I don't know what you mean by your wins are different. Wins are wins on the football field, and that's what people are paying attention to. And when you jumped out to a 3-0 start last year, that seemed to be a pretty big selling point, and it got quieter as the season went on.
Courtney Cronin, how'd you hear Deion?
I heard him as we always hear him, talking about himself in a separate category from everybody else in college football. This is a team that was 4-8 last year. What we expect from a Colorado team that has been picked to finish 11th in its conference by most polls. I just want to see a little improvement. Where does that start? The offensive line. They overhauled it. All 5 starters from last year are gone. Shedeur Sanders was the most sacked quarterback in college football and was pressured on nearly 40% of his dropbacks. Some of that's on the offensive line. Some of that's on him holding onto the ball too long. I'd like to see improvements there to know how many games this team is going to win, simply based on the fact that was their biggest weakness last
Bill
season.
Plaschke.
Yes, he's more scrutinized because he brings it on himself. He has the cameras following him every move he makes. He runs the kids out of the program. He verbally, yells at kids in front of everybody. It's a mess there. They need an offensive line. They're last in the league in the FBS in yards per rush. They were last in the second last in the FBS in sacks. They have no offensive line. That comes from continuity. He doesn't have continuity.
Yeah, done that.
So yes, his wins are dissected, but he brings it on himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to classify and categorize the different type of wins. He needs to win football games. That's what he's there for. That's how he's going to be judged. I remember when Randy Shannon was the head coach at Miami's football program, he had the best graduation rate we'd seen from that program. But we don't talk about him like Jimmy Johnson and Howard Schnellbecker because he didn't win enough football games.
Should it be said, though, he won 4 last year, and that was judged to be the Sportsman of the Year? Okay, doesn't that need to be said as well? Yeah. He was judged differently in a positive way, it seemed, in some ways. We'll move on. Buy or sell to New York Giants, Hard Knocks. The Saquon Barkley phone call was caught on camera. Listen to this.
The right thing to do is let you test the market and see what your value is. You know, if you really want to be a Giant for life and you're interested in staying here and coming back, just see what your market is and then have Ed come back to us and we'll see if we can come to an agreement.
All right, I appreciate that.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Can you give me your word on that, or you're not going to give us a chance?
What do you mean? I'm circling back?
Yeah.
I mean, I already told you where I want to be, so.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do that. We'll go out and see what the market says.
That's Giants general manager Joe Schoen there. And, of course, Saquon Barkley. Courtney, how'd you hear that?
Remember, teams have editorial control over what goes out over Hard Knocks. The Giants wanted us to hear that conversation. I respect that Joe Schoen had a red line that he was not going to cross in terms of what he was going to pay Saquon Barkley, but the audacity to go and tell your star running back, your face of the franchise, go test the market and then come back to us, and if we want to match the offer, we will, and then to ask him, but you're going to come back and make sure that we have a chance to do that. Like, if you really wanted to make him a Giant for life, they had more than a year to do so. After they placed the franchise tag on him, couldn't come to the agreement, he plays out the tag. To me, no love lost from either side.
Bill Plaschke?
Worst sales job ever. It was like he didn't want him. It was like he told him to leave. If I'm Saquon Barkley, I'm hearing that phone call, I'm thinking, this guy doesn't want me here anymore. It's clear. That was very clear.
Jay Adande?
To me, it's shady to ask Saquon Barkley to give the Giants the right of last refusal to make a promise without his agent on the line. That's really dicey and shady to me.
Kevin Blackistone.
Man, how unenthusiastic was that? This is a guy who was proving his worth to your team year after year, coming back from injury, and that's the best job that you can have to sell your team. He should have been pleading with Saquon Barkley. What can we do to bring
Well, you can
back
understand,
into the fold
as
and
Courtney
keep
said,
him
there's a
around?
red line. They're not going to pay more. Fine. Give me your word when we deal in contracts in this business that are not guaranteed, by the way, after initial signing. That is that's a tough sell for someone who's on that
Suspect.
contract. And then, this is the thing about Hard Knocks. You just see the humans behind this all, the people in all this, on both sides of that. Saquon Barkley was a human on the other end of the phone being told about his career and his life just like that. Sometimes it's hard to watch. Blackistone, thanks for your time today. Adande and Cronin head-to-head for the first time ever in Showdown next. Reports of the NBA's new media rights deal, $76 billion, or wherever it ends up. There's an expectation of more pay for players and a $100 million season deal in the near future. But the Associated Press writing up another demonstration of growth, expansion, and Las Vegas, Seattle, Vancouver, Montreal, and KC in play there. Jay, what's the takeaway?
My takeaway is I'm impressed that they got 11 years out of this deal because we don't know what the landscape is going to look like in television and streaming 4 or 5 years from now. So they're going to get 2024 rates into the middle of the next decade. That's very impressive. That could wind up being Adam Silver's legacy.
Courtney Cronin.
We get round ball rock back. We will see at least 2 teams expanded as part of the NBA's landscape. And by mid-2030s, players are going to be making $100 million, the top tier guys on contracts. I love that.
Salaries going up. I mean, that's what happens, I guess. What do you think are the expansion sites? Jay, Hall of Famer to be this fall. Where do you see the NBA expanding to? What cities?
I'd say stay domestic, Seattle and Vegas.
Mm-hmm. The point went to round ball rock, by the way. We'll move on. Home Run Derby field is set. Here it is. Courtney Cronin, who you got?
Got Gunnar Henderson, the first guy to enter into the Home Run Derby, Rookie of the Year last year. It's the midway point of the season. He has 27 home runs, 28 total last year. So my money is on Gunnar Henderson obliterating the competition next week.
I'm going with Pete Alonso. He shines in this, multiple-time winner in the past. But can I make a plea? Can we get Rhys Hine in this, please? I mean, the guy's come up. He's already hit 900 feet worth of home runs in his first 2 games. Can we get a wild card and get him into the competition?
Rhys Hines, that's one of my favorite records set this year. The longest home runs in your first 2 games, 900 feet worth of home runs. I got Alonso 2 points. Adande, Showdown 3. We're drinking tonight. If anyone's earned the right to drink, it's the Pac-12. That was Commissioner Teresa Gould. Pac-12 is a Pac-2 right now. Still had a media day yesterday with an open bar. because Oregon State and Washington State are still playing. It's a conference media day for two teams, still a conference media day, Jay.
Yes, this is how they all should be done. Let me tell you, there's nothing I would dread more than sitting and listening to a dozen or 14 or 16 football coaches, college football talk. It's the worst, most boring stuff ever. But drinks at the bar and I only got to listen to two coaches talk? Sign me up for that.
Obviously, this is the death of the Pac-12, but this kind of reminds me of an Irish wake where you're in the back room drinking some whiskey, celebrating life instead of being sad about the death.
Cordy Cronin, 30 seconds of FaceTime.
On the same day that Asia Wilson recorded her first career 2020 game in the Aces win over the Seattle Storm, she became the first W player to grace the cover of NBA 2K25. She's already broken barriers throughout her entire career, from South Carolina to the WNBA. Her defense has been absolutely incredible. I talked to her on First Take today. She did say that she will play as herself when she gets around to playing this video game, but an incredible accomplishment for an incredible player and the player who is the MVP frontrunner right now.
And how about that flex?
Double
I talked to her
dip.
today.
FaceTime.
Courtney Cronin. 23 and a half hour break.
Double dip.
See you tomorrow.